So now we're going to go through the examples of the January, June and November summaries. So just because it's probably going to it's a lot of information, it might get a bit confusing, I'm going to hand you out some examples now so you can just refer to them throughout the slides. They are some double-sided so you can put it on each other. So, the main differences between each of the three summaries are the times of year and the stage of development that the child is at. For example, a January summary is completed at the very beginning of the child's year. Therefore, the chances that you do not really know the child's personality, likes and dislikes, and learning styles, and have not yet developed a trusting and meaningful bond with that child. The January summary therefore takes a different format compared to like the June and the November summaries. You will not have to be assessing the child under each of the outcomes. You will instead be assessing what you have learned about the child. So obviously under each of the outcomes, you don't know the child well enough to write under each of the outcomes what they're achieving. So this is why we set the January summaries out like this instead. So, interests. What do they enjoy doing while they're at kindergarten? So when they come in, you've got your tabletop activities out, you might have had some lists from the parents saying what they enjoy doing. What are you observing them doing that they seem to really enjoy? What are they engaged in? What's their interests? Strengths and abilities. Is there anything you've noticed that the child is particularly confident with or needs more support to achieve a particular skill? Are they really good in their physical ability? Can they race around and they've got good balance movement? Maybe they need to work on their fine motor skills though. So that's a really good one to put in there. And relationships. Are they developing bonds with educators or peers? So are they building those initial bonds with you? Are they making eye contact? Are they watching their peers? Do they want to be around you, want to be around their peers? Or are they just sat in the corner looking really scared? You need to, obviously if they are doing that, you need to word it really well, but you need to definitely write that within the January summaries. So again, so this is now for the June and the November summary. Sorry, at the end of the January summary as well, obviously you'll be writing your reflection, your elf and a little goal. As you can see on your sheets, it's just brief at the bottom, but I'll go through it again on the board in just a second. So just a brief overall of the June and November summary. They're both set out in the same fashion, so you'll use the same template for each of them. But there's one clear different factor. November summaries will always be the follow-on from the June summaries. So a June summary entails the summary assessment of the child's learning over the first 6 months within your care, whereas the November summary is the assessment of the child after 11 months. So it's obviously a big gap. You know the child so much better and they have a better bond and you are aware of their interests and their development over 11 months compared to the 6. So at the 6 month stage you're writing down your initial findings of that child like under each of the outcomes, whereas compared to the November where you will be following it on. So you should have it ready maybe next to you, the June summary when you're writing out your November, just so you can make sure that you're directly linking them together and showing how they've developed their skills further. So the June summary will include all the things that you are going to keep working towards with that child, as well as the goals that the child has achieved so far. Pretty straightforward. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. November summaries will include the progression from the June summary and any further goals you believe the child will benefit from. So at the November, you can just write a little note at the bottom. You can either make it a specific goal or you can just write a note of something that you think the child would benefit from furthering in their skills. So this is the example of the January summary that you've just got there. So we'll just go through it a little bit just to have a better understanding of why those things are in there. So remembering that the January summary is the one that's set out a bit different to the June and the November. Benjamin has a great start to the year by getting to know his peers and new educators. He's enjoyed exploring his new room and playing with different toys. Benjamin's main interests are playing with anything that involves transport. This could be anything from running around the garden with the cars and bikes to sitting and pushing a train around the train track. He also has an interest in animals, to which his chosen animal is a lion. You will quite often see Ben with a line roaring out loud to other peers and educators with a great big smile on his face. So this is great for this is great because you're showing that you really have been watching him over the last month and making sure that he's make sure he's got interest, like showing that you've seen him running around with the cars and bikes, and he's also playing with transport inside, and that he's also really into his animals, but he's obviously particularly a fan of lions. So his strengths and abilities. Benjamin is quite a confident boy in his play. Ben engages in solitary play and parallel interactions. Ben takes part in small and large group experiences and is growing in confidence during song time. So you're saying that he's got confidence and that he also likes being part of a group. So you're saying he's got those social skills as well. He uses gestures such as nodding. However, when prompted, Ben will answer with single word answers. So this is saying that he does have some verbal and non-verbal communication skills, and you're also kind of writing almost a little goal there. Ben demonstrates comfort within his environment through exploring all activities wholeheartedly. So he's saying that he's intrigued, he's curious, that's one of his strengths. And that Ben really enjoys the sandpit and will often choose this activity outside. Again, it's another interest, and he likes to explore and do things. In the relationship sections, we'll see how Ben's bonded. So Ben has bonded very well with his new educators and peers. Although he hasn't yet grasped the concept of playing with others, he does like to be around other people. So you're saying maybe this is so you're saying that he doesn't really play with other children yet, but that's okay because he likes to be around them. So you're making it positive for the parents. You're not saying that he's sat there on his own, not exploring with his friends all day. He's still watching and learning. Benjamin doesn't seem to cry on any odd occasion, however he is easily distracted by different toys and activities. Again, showing that he's obviously building some form of relationship and bond with you as educators in the room, because he's not so upset and distraught, he's just sat crying, and when he does, he's easily distracted. So is this the reflection, intentional teaching and ELF that I was on about? Just for the generous remove. This could be quite brief. It's more to give you an idea of what you can follow on for as well. So Benjamin has settled well, and he just has the odd cries, he's distracted. So basically in reflection, you're just briefly summarising what you have just wrote about his interests, his strengths, and his relationships. And then the intentional teaching. So this is what you'd like to work next on him, with him, what you'd like to do a follow-on activity on. So to develop Ben's knowledge of the different types of transport by singing different songs such as The Wheels on the Bus, or reading a book and pointing out the different cars and trucks. This is a great intentional teaching because you've already said that he has a really good interest in transport and that he likes the group time situations. So you're combining these to develop his knowledge on an interest that he really is obviously interested in and he likes, which is transport. And then the ELF link, this is the link that's directly related to the intentional teaching, not to the whole January summary. Because obviously you've done a lot of outcomes in that January summary. So so the ELF is just directly related to the intentional teaching that you plan on doing with him. So I normally would do the intentional teaching in the February or the March following, if that's still his interest. It's a really good idea to set off on what you want to do with that child. Is that all pretty clear to everyone? Makes sense? Perfect. So, June summary. So this is only outcome 1, 2 and 3. On the next slide I will show you outcome 4 and 5. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of information here. This one is based on a preschool child. So obviously she, when we were writing this, she's obviously got quite a lot out of the outcome. She's had a long time at the centre, she does things compared to maybe when you're writing a summary for the early learning side. In the November summary, I've actually based that on the early learning side so you can see the difference, but you can still see how it flows on from the initial. So outcome 1. So here, just listen out for, also you've got your sheets that have all the outcomes on them. So you can see here how we've wrote it into sentences and how we haven't directly just picked it out and plonked it in. So Gertrude has a quiet and gentle disposition during her time in the Tigers. Gertrude's confidence has slowly developed this year, as the years progress, However, she is most comfortable with familiar peers and educators. So if you remember in outcome 1, it was building the relationship. She was saying how she's confident. And when Gertrude is confident and comfortable, she can be open to and engage in sustained conversations about her ideas and experiences. So Rachel, this is where you were asking before if you can link them both together, like write them several times throughout. Obviously saying that she has sustained conversations about her ideas and experiences is directly related to outcome 5.1. But it is also very relevant to outcome 1 because it's showing that she's building the relationship with her peer. So you see how they both.
So would you put it again in outcome 5? Or
yeah, you can just write it in a different way. So just write it in a slightly different sense in her conversational skills or the amount of words she's using, that kind of.
Do you have to do that? Or if
you don't have to, you've already mentioned
area?
it. So obviously, I know you've got the 3-year-olds, so they'll be using lots of language. So you can make sure that in outcome 5 that you're just stating.
I might choose to put it in 5 rather than 1.
Exactly.
Because
then, just they're not all the same. So outcome 2. Gertrude has continued to develop some great friendships this year and has begun to broaden her friendship group. We will continue to encourage Gertrude to extend her social group peer interactions in order to develop her confidence with less familiar peers in preparation for school. She enjoys imaginative play, art, music, experiences and reading among other activities with her peers, in particular with Talia, Sarah and Gemma. Gertrude can generally describe her feelings well and only sometimes become overwhelmed as she allows herself to be comforted by her educators when this happens. So this is really good. It's like a little, can you see how it's like a little story of the outcomes? So it's not so formal, it is a story of how Gertrude is under each of the outcomes. And 3 is very similar. It's focusing on, she's demonstrated fine motor skills, she holds a pencil with a tripod grip, so being quite descriptive because obviously in previous years, obviously Gertrude is a preschooler, she wouldn't have had those grips, she might have just had the grass grip, so it's developing on it. So these are the other 2 slides. Outcome 4, very similar again, and here as you can see outcome 5, because she is an older child, she does have a lot of language. So for the younger rooms you might not have, outcome 5 might be only a couple of sentences, whereas outcome 4 may be quite a big paragraph. Don't worry about each of your children having different lengths for each outcome. As long as you've stated they're achieving all the things they're achieving, it doesn't matter how long or short it is.
Is there a guide that we could be looking at to know where they should be with their milestones?
You can have a look at the milestones anyway, but it's more directly to them. So if you're saying they're not quite developing this yet, because obviously within the room they're all the same age, so you can compare them to each other, but obviously that's very, they all have their own interests and their own abilities. So mainly the June summaries, we're not comparing them to specific milestones, we're comparing them against themselves almost. So it's just against the outcomes. You're just basically saying if they're achieving the outcome, because the outcomes aren't age specific, they're your interpretation of them. So if your interpretation is that she's not achieving one of them or he's not achieving one of them, you can write that down and say developing towards this or developing towards that, because
would it be too much to write, say if a 1-year-old is favouring a left or right hand?
You can mention that in there, that you have seen on several occasions that they are doing that. And you can always in the November tailor up or do it in observations. So yeah, it's what you've seen that child doing, so you can write that in there. Yeah. So did the June summary look okay to everyone?
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. So November summary. Obviously, as you can see, this is for a younger child. That's why it is quite a lot shorter than the other one. They have they're also achieving less of the outcomes. Some of them are, so obviously like I said, all the outcomes are very interpreted by yourself, so they're like self-interpretation to them. Obviously some of them can't be achieved by the younger children yet, just because they don't have those abilities and the development and the knowledge. So outcome 1, so I'm just going to read this out so you can see how it flows on from the June summary. So Thomas is a confident boy who has continued to explore and engage with social and physical environments through relationships and play. So obviously this continued to explore, that was obviously in the June summary, he was exploring his natural environments through relationships in play. So they've just said he's continued to do this. He has shown this by initiating different play experiences throughout the year, such as role play with his peers and dressing up. So they've also done a little example, which is really nice to show how he has carried that on and is furthered it. Outcome 2, Thomas has still got an ongoing development for sharing with his peers on a daily basis. So obviously in the June summary, Thomas was not able to share, and this has continued now, but she's done it in a very upbeat, kind of relaxed way. It's Thomas has still got an ongoing development. So you see how that positive use of language. I know you were saying in the last training session, have you got the sheet for the positive words? I've got one printed out for you all now, so I can give you them at the end so you can use all your positive words in there. On occasions, he does share his toys with his peers. So you've put there that even though he's still not, he's obviously developed something because he's now starting on occasions to share with his peers. Thomas also has the ability to show that he can cooperate